Hello folks, and welcome to hopefully what is the first of many photo editing tutorials on this channel. What I'm going to speak to you today about is double processing a single raw file. And the reason we might do that is if you've shot just a single exposure and you can't pull back the tonal range in the image as much as you'd like to by just adjusting the sliders in Lightroom. And also when you adjust the sliders like that in Lightroom, so for example if you just up the shadows and bring down the highlights, often it creates kind of a flat boring image and you don't get that nice contrast and you don't do the tones in the image any justice. So I'm going to take an image here and show you what I mean by double processing it. We're going to take it into Photoshop. I'll give you a brief introduction to layers and exposure blending, and I'm also going to show you how to apply individual adjustments to the sky and shadows and the midtones in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to jump in here to the laptop now. Okay, so here we have the shot I took of the fairy tree in the burn a few weeks back, and the reason I chose this image is because I usually shoot multiple exposures and blend them using luminosity masks, but this is a perfect image to double process. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to essentially create two exposures as if we shot two different exposures out on location. So first of all, I'm going to right click on the image. I'm going to go to create virtual copy. Okay, so now we have these two copies created. I'm going to just rate them there 5 and 5 just so I can distinguish between 5 and 4 even. Okay, so and I use this one as my highlights. So firstly I'm going to bring my highlights way down. Okay, I'm going to put a grad filter over it. It's desaturated, I don't know why. And again we're going to bring them down just to bring back some of those highlights, and we're also going to warm it up. Okay, so you process these exposures to how you want it to turn out when it's blended, obviously. Okay, but the key thing is that you can't have too contrasting a blend, even if I can say my words. Okay, so there's my highlights exposure. Now this is my shadows. I'm going to have to up this so a stop, maybe half a stop. So I wouldn't have been able to achieve this if I had upped that half a stop. You can see the highlights are getting blown out, so and I wouldn't have been able to pull them back in a single image. So that's why we're double processing it. Okay, I'm going to up the shadows and I'm just going to reduce the blacks just a bit, just to give this area a bit more contrast. And I'm also going to warm it up as well. Okay, just take that blue off the foreground because I warmed up the sky. And we'll take these down a touch. Actually I'm going to put up, because I want to bring out the highlights in these rocks here where the light was hitting it. Okay, not looking too bad. Yeah, so look, you process this to your taste. This isn't about how to color grade an image. I'm just showing you here how to blend them and create a virtual copies and stuff. So once you've the two copies made, highlight the two of them, right click, go to edit in and open as layers in Photoshop. And when my computer responds, then it will open as two layers in Photoshop. My laptop's on the way out, so give it a chance. So I got my two exposures, we're going to call them, opened here in Photoshop. Normally if you shoot two different exposures, you would have to align the two of these so that you don't have any ghosting, because the camera might move slightly in between shots. But this is the same photo, so there's no need. As you can see, there's absolutely no movement in around here. But if you did have to align them, just select the two of them, go up here to edit and auto align layers. Okay, just a side note there. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a black mask over my top layer and we'll paint that in then. So if you go down here to the layer mask symbol, hit that. Now that's after putting a white layer, so all I have to do is hit Control and I, or Command and I, and it'll invert it to a black mask. You could also just hold Alt when you're hitting the layer mask symbol, and that'll give you a black layer mask. Select your paintbrush, foreground colour to white, set your opacity up to 100%, and make sure the hardness is on 0 so that we get a nice smooth blend and a smooth transition. And just simply paint that back in. Very simply like that. Okay? Easy peasy. That is a basic intro to exposure blending, and this is quite an easy image to do it with because we haven't got much going on the horizon. Now you can see it darkened a few areas here that I didn't want it to darken, so it darkened in along here. I'm going to take them out, so I'm going to switch my foreground colour from white to black and just paint in like this then, and bring that back. Now this is about creating, so you can see I've got a blatant line there now. This is about creating smooth transitions between images. So what you do there is, again, bring the opacity down again and just paint back. Okay, you don't want any haloing or any lines. You want a nice smooth transition between the two, and that is just with playing around with it, reduce the opacities, okay, and getting the exposure nice. So there you go, we've blended back in our sky, okay, and you can see there's no silhouettes. We still have some nice detail here in the trees, get still some nice light catching, okay, so it's all good. And once you've done that, I'm going to show you how to individually process the highlights and the shadows exposure. And the reason you might do that is because if you want to apply some adjustments to the sky without affecting the shadows, you could do it with an adjustment brush, but I find this way a bit more accurate. So you're going to click on the curves adjustment layer. You're going to hold Alt, and you're going to click the line in between the curves and the highlights layer. As you can see, this arrow comes up here, that symbol, that means it's linked to the highlights layer, okay? And just apply your adjustments then. So I want to bring back a touch more contrast in that sky. Just a touch. Very, very subtle. Okay? Like so. I'm going to do the same for my shadows. Again, I'm going to link it. And we're going to bring that down. I'll bring that, okay. I want to create a small bit of a darker kind of a scene in here because I'm going to dodge and burn this in a minute now. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my dodge tool, up the exposure by 11%, and paint in some of those highlights there, very, very subtly. Okay, just light adjustments, don't overdo it. No. And that's not looking too bad already, okay? But just remember that you can apply those individual adjustments to any of those layers you want. Okay, and it's a very, very handy tip. Now, I'm ready to stamp those layers and bring them into one layer. So, Shift, Control, Alt and E will bring it up to the top. Shift, Control, Alt and E will put all those, put those two blends you've made into one layer here. So now we can work on this one layer as if it was a single image. And after this, look, it's personal preference. I probably warm it up, go to color balance and warm it because I want to get this kind of bluey hint off of the rocks. Okay. I done some brightness and just add some local contrast. And into my filter, camera raw filter. So camera raw is basically the raw editor of Photoshop. So again, I'm just going to warm up this shot now. I wanted a nice kind of a warm feel, even though it's an absolutely freezing cold morning. And again, this is just editing to your taste. I like to pull a grad filter down over the top part of the sky. Just give it that bit of a dark feel. And same here, just to draw your eye to the image itself. That blue is a little too saturated for me, so I'm going to just desaturate the blue in my Hsl sliders here. If you don't know how to use Hsl sliders, I would highly recommend you do so, and if you want me to show you, that's no problem. But they are a very powerful tool, very underrated, especially in Lightroom when you're only just doing when you're basically processing an image just in Lightroom alone. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. So I'll click OK. I might apply some vignette or some sharpening. Where's my sharpening gone? Detail, yeah, some sharpening, and just a touch of noise reduction. And there we go. That's looking quite nice. Warmed up, we're picking out these lovely tones in the sky. The last thing I done with the image was I clone stamped out this little shrub here because it just wasn't doing anything for this shot. So when you're clone stamping, get your clone stamp tool, select Alt, and that will give you a little symbol here where you have to select where you want the clone to pick its source from, and just clone stamp away that shrub there, because it isn't doing anything for us at the moment. So apply your selection from a reasonably, where you know you'll get a reasonably good selection. Okay, so. And there's your shrub stamped out. Yeah, that's basically it, folks. Double processing a raw file, a single raw file, and I just showed you some adjustments you can make there, and a little trick with applying the individual edits, the highlights and the shadows. You can totally process this to your taste. I don't mind. I'm just kind of throwing stuff at you. So create a virtual copy, create 2 exposures, and as I said, it's as if you shot 2 exposures on location. Bring it into Lightroom, or bring it into Photoshop even, and just black mask over your highlights exposure and blend it in. And it really is that simple. After that, then you can go in and process it as much as you like, and stamp the 2 layers then into this 1 layer. And the beauty of doing that is that if you're not happy with this, you can just delete this layer. You still have your work done here. You can you can go back in here, apply your adjustments, and stamp the layers and create 1 image again. Much better than just using the shadows and highlight slider in Lightroom. Creates a much more pleasing image. And the finished image I came up with was this one. So I brought it back into Lightroom. I put a square crop on it, and it broke all the rules. I had my horizon in the center, I had my tree smack dead in the center, but it just worked for this shot, and sometimes it does that. Sometimes it does work. You can see I applied a nice dark vignette here and just brought out those lights where the sun was hitting the rocks. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I hope you learned something, and any questions, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe, please like, please follow my Instagram, link in the description. And yeah, until the next time, stay safe.